you touched on a lot of really interesting aspects of your work. I think we can actually slow down and dilate this conversation. We have accelerated quite quickly into deep queerness. And I think that it might be helpful to situate ourselves in your theories of erotic ecology and why, as someone who has practiced the sciences, is engaging very quantifiable data, why is an erotic frame more helpful at engaging our sensuous bodies and our feeling than perhaps a more strictly in fictional objective frame? Can you paint an argument for why erotic ecology is a really helpful way of engaging more than just our brains?
Well, there is no objectivity, so you have no choice. So objectivity is a myth. That's the myth which creates binaries, because then if you have objectivity, then you have also subjectivity, or you have irrationality. And in a world in which identities are not fixed but are realized desires of unfolding, that's more or less what I tried to say in the first part. In such a world, you don't have any objectivity, or if you have objectivity, you have something which I would call poetic objectivity, which is the objectivity of the shared desire to create living relationships. So there might be a sort of objectivity, but it's not the scientific Western objectivity of cold, hard facts. I'm not a queerness expert, actually. So in somehow working with this term and with this idea also for my own class, I really fell in love with how non-binary life is, actually. So how continuously recreating in terms of everything which is somehow fixed it is. You're asking for this term erotic ecology. So
well, yeah, maybe locate us. You've recontextualized the Greek god of eros as actually the dynamic homeostasis of the biosphere, as the biosphere itself as being the erotic basis of all life. We're starting in the mythic realm and going into the biological realm. Can you guide us on that journey?
Oh, yes. Yeah, thank you. Eros is one of the old gods. I always love to tell this story. So Eros, according to Hesiod, Eros is the child which the night conceived from the wind, the night wind. And the night created this silver egg. And from the silver egg hatched Eros. And Eros is, in this old vision, the god of creation, the god of creativity, the god of change, the god of making new things, of shape-shifting, of letting forms flow into other forms. And he is one of the old gods. So there's this layer of old gods, and then came the new gods who slayed the old gods. You know, Zeus and Athene, they're the new gods, but they're these old gods like Eros and Uranus. If we talk about Eros, we talk about two things. We talk about desire and we talk about touch. And we might even talk, so maybe it's three things. We talk about creation. So we talk about the desire to create by surrendering to the world of skin, surface, and touch. And that's basically what is happening in the biosphere. So the biosphere, or let's say the living earth or living cosmos, is a world of bodies who desire to exist, to unfold, to thrive. And in order to do this, they need to mutually transform themselves. They need to get in touch. They need to mate. They need to eat one another. They need to hold hands. They need to fight. So they're always this level of material transformation. And it's guided by desire. And to me, it made actually sense. So I have a very erotic relationship to other living beings. It's my bread and water of every day. So to me, it made totally sense that we're fundamentally filled and moved by eros. Only that eros is not just human sex. That's a very reductive idea of eros. And eros has these many forms I tried to talk about in my head start into deep queerness. As you put it nicely. What I'm trying to do there is really understand our living world in a different way. So in a way, I suggested to, okay, let's write a different biology, which is not based on the fiction of objective facts, but which is based on our participation in the desire for contact with other bodies, existential conflict for other bodies. And I think it's just more realistic to do it this way.
So there's an interesting question in the chat, which is something I'm actually interested in hearing you talk about. Can you talk about desire on a microbial, on a matterful, creaturely level, and then build it back up into the sensuous human realm? Like, what is desire? Is desire something we can measure? Is it something we feel?
Well, it's certainly something we can feel. It's certainly not something we can measure, but that's not the reason not to talk about it. Well, desire on the microbial level. Let's talk about the desire of a bacterium, E. coli, or some bacterium like this. And then we're back. We're directly back to what I started with. So we have this relatively simple organism, relatively simple, because no organism is simple, which is a cell, one cell. The cell has this outer shell, and then there are these things inside like DNA and little organs. And what does this cell do? This cell builds itself all the time in continuity, because a complicated structure like a cell is always breaking down, like everything in this world. It's just breaking down if you don't maintain it. So this cell is building up itself, and for building up itself, it needs stuff from the outside, so it needs to feed, and it's building this stuff into itself. That's what I was trying to explain. So this cell, this microbial cell, is using stuff which doesn't belong to itself and transforming it into itself. And if you start looking for actually who is actually doing this, you don't find anything. You don't find anything. This is why science at a certain point, and there was a big discussion until the beginning of the 19th century about where you find actually somehow the center of this living force, this intention, this drive. You see, I'm already using words which are very close to desire. They were looking for this and they didn't find it. So they said, well, actually, it doesn't exist. I have dissected 1,000 brains and I never found a soul, so it's not there. But it's a very naive sandbox playground view. So what you actually see is that there is an invisible center ordering matter according to the needs of this center to keep itself ongoing. And so what life does is using matter to build a self. And you all know how a self feels because you all have it. Very quickly, we come from this bacterial reality to something which we can understand, because we are nothing else. We're much more complicated in a way, but in another way. So you see, desire is the activity of the invisible self ordering matter in order to maintain itself. So desire is in the center, and you all know that desire is also in your center. So we're desiring entities. We desire to wake up tomorrow. We desire to have a coffee. We desire to eat. We desire to unfold. We desire to connect. We're beings who are longing for life. And I would say that is the center of living beings, longing for life. And what they do is embody, enact this longing together. And that's where queering comes in.